All for me grog, me jolly, jolly grog. All for me beer and tobacco. Well, I spent all me tin with the ladies drinking gin. Now across the western ocean I must wander.
Where are me crew?
Me crew.
Me jolly, jolly crew.
They're all gone for beer and tobacco.
Since the COVID came around and the pubs all they shut down, now I'm missing singing songs with you together.
Oh, all for me grog, me jolly, jolly grog. All for me beer and tobacco. Well, I spent all me tin with the ladies drinking gin. Now across the western ocean I must wander. Yes, across the western ocean I must wander.
Well, welcome everybody to January's First Friday program. Thank you all for your patience as we switched from a in-person Eventbrite reservation to a full membership welcome to join us tonight on Zoom. We were talking earlier this evening and we couldn't figure out if it was April or May that Jack and myself last had to coordinate this venue. And it was fun really hearing that song once again. I thought I would never have to hear it again, but we have. But we've scratched our heads and said, how do we do this and how do we do that? And hopefully tonight we don't have any technical hiccups. So just a reminder, everyone will be muted. So we have less background disruption except for the presenter and myself. You have the option to turn off your video at the bottom left of your screen. There you will see the icon for both the microphone and the video. Jack will be in control of the microphone until the very end. If you have any questions, please write them down in the chat, which I will be monitoring. And if you raise your hand to get my attention, you can do that at the bottom of your screen. You'll see the reactions icon and it's featured there. So please feel free to use either one of those to make this a little bit more interactive. We will try to call upon you if there is a moment to address your question. Otherwise, we will open up all microphones at the end for a Q&A. And we are recording this evening's presentation to make it available on the Customs House Maritime Museum YouTube channel. So here we are. We all ended the year on our feet. We are grateful to the sponsors, donors, and members that had the confidence to support the museum, an important cornerstone of Newburyport. Now that the Customs House Maritime tree has been removed, life rings are ready to be picked up. Feel free to buzz the back doorbell next week to claim your life ring. As always, there are rings creatively decorated. And they really did withstand the Merrimack weather conditions this year. So good job, everyone. There were less litter to pick up this year than last. January is a good time to change out our temporary exhibitions. The end of the year saw the closures of the Early American Tavern and the Coast Guard artwork that had been displayed in the stairwell. A fresh coat of paint, 2 new installations, and you'll have to come back this new year to see the new installations. One exhibit will display sculptures by Jeffrey Briggs, a local artist featuring legendary Newburyporters. 14 small sculptures of 18th and 19th century of local and national fame are depicted. Jeff demystifies the lost wax process as the production of Timothy Palmer is captured on video and edited by Joseph Novak. The casting and many of the artist tools will be on display along with the artist and local historical or historian statements for each piece. So the exhibit's really intended to be informative, but it's really kind of interesting that you may be able to really see some connections, not only of the past, but to today's present, because a lot of the historians are your friends and neighbors and colleagues. The development of this exhibition was quite extraordinary. Jeff had practical questions about period dress and reached out seeking information. He was met with many enthusiastic citizens eager to contribute, shape, or write about the legendary Newburyporters. In fact, the exhibition catalog grew to a 146-page publication, a collection of today's voices. We have received sponsorship from the Newburyport Bank and the H. Patterson Hale Jr. Charitable Foundation, and to Charles Griffin for sponsoring the video. Thank you all. About 36 individuals from the community were involved with the exhibition, including photographers, graphic designers, and the writers and editors. In addition to the Briggs exhibit, a selection of contemporary marine art by John Sheedy will be displayed. Inspired by a winterscape of resting boats in Windward Boatyard, Sheedy took photographs over a period of 2 weeks and spent the winter working on a series of paintings, and they are stunning. Tonight, we have bosun mate first class Joseph Habel from Station Merrimack River. I had thought to define what a bosun mate is responsible for and does, but instead I thought to just let Joe tell you. Instead, I wish to thank Joe and all the other servicemen and women at Station Merrimack for their service, not only to the community of Newburyport, but to keeping our waters safe for the nearby inhabitants, both on land and in water. Before he begins, I will make one observation. In asking Joe to speak, he said he loves talking about people and the job he loves. Tonight, we have the pleasure of listening to Petty Officer Habel speak about Station Merrimack, only one of 4 surf stations on the US coast. He also intends to provide a glimpse into everyday life. I can't imagine what that would be like, and the types of missions he performs. So welcome, Joe. There you are. At least I'm hoping you can turn it on, your video and microphone, Joe. Or Jack, maybe you can help from the end. There you go. See ya.
We're getting there.
There you are.
Can you see me and hear me?
I can. You're looking good.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much. Can I see myself? Yes, I can. There we go.
Sometimes
Nice bright shiny light in front of me. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction. My name is Petty Officer Joseph Habel. Officially, realistically, my title is Bosun's Mate First Class, which means my rate is Bosun's Mate and my pay grade or my grade is a first class. So don't get too wrapped up in it. Every single branch has their own way of titling themselves, and the enlisted world is incredibly difficult. I am an enlisted petty officer in the U.S. Coast Guard. I've been in the Coast Guard. I'll give you a brief history about myself before I kind of start with it. I usually love to do these things in person. I was a little bummed that we couldn't do this in person. I understand exactly why, and quite frankly, after seeing the snow today, I'm okay with not driving all the way into Newburyport as well. I joined the Coast Guard right out of high school, just about. I went into boot camp, which means I'm an enlisted person. There's basically 2 sides to the military. There's enlisted, and then there's officer. Your officer is a more senior leadership. What you're seeing more on the political side, you know, big picture, managing how the branch works, managing finances, the programs, the missions, really big scope. They go to the academy. I'm in the enlisted world, so we're doing a little bit more of the dirty work, if you will. We're the ones that are carrying the service. We're the ones that are going out on the boats, affecting the rescue, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But so I went to boot camp, company November 172, so 2005, I believe. I just hit 16 years, right out of boot camp. I was stationed on a 210-foot cutter in Cape May, New Jersey, which is actually where boot camp is. And so when they said, Habel, orders to Cape May, everybody kind of chuckled because we were already in Cape May, and it was kind of like I wasn't able to leave. But I really loved it. Cape May is an amazing town. It's much like Newburyport. They love the Coast Guard. But I didn't want to be out on the boat anymore. I saw everywhere from the Canada, US border, all the way down to Cuba. We did drug interdiction. We did fisheries enforcement. we even got to do one search and rescue case and tow in a boat from about 100 miles offshore, if I remember correctly. And we actually dropped them off to a unit. I think it was New York, honestly. So we were pretty far out there. And then I went to my A school, which is where I got my rating, so my specialty knowledge. So when you join the Coast Guard, everybody starts off usually as a non-rate, so a non-rated person. They're just fresh out of boot camp. I wanted to be a bosun's mate. I wanted to be working with the boats, driving boats. And so I went to A school. And then from there, I was interested in the surf program, taking those boats out into the surf, being able to rewrite them and doing something that almost nobody else in the world really does. And it's the highest achievement that you can get when it comes to driving boats for the military and the Coast Guard. Maybe not the military, because there's a lot of cool combat operators out there. But so I got stationed in Hatteras Inlet, North Carolina, on the Outer Banks. So if you've ever been down south and you've been out there, it's pretty far out there. It's pretty secluded, but it's gorgeous. Continued that surf career. Then we met my wife. We got married. And then moved out to Station Chetco River, which is in Brookings, Oregon. It is the most southern station in Oregon. So right there on the California border, about 6 miles north of California. Continued to work on my career and struggled with what I wanted to do and went back and forth if I really wanted to be a surfman or if not, and prayed about it. Put down 3 surf stations and the rest were all cutters. I said, you know what, maybe I'll go out to sea. And sure enough, I got Hatteras Inlet again. And I said, you know what, this is it. That's my sign. Went back to Hatteras Inlet, North Carolina, certified as a surfman. And then got stationed up here in Merrimack. And it has been a change for me. I've lived in the South most of my life. I don't have a strong accent, but I know it's there. And I've really enjoyed it. I really, really have. Newburyport's a beautiful town. I live in Seabrook, so I'm not far away from town. It's great. It's really awesome. And, the boating community here is incredibly different than what I'm used to. Very seasonal, if anybody's been out on the Merrimack River. Right now, I think there's probably 4 boats in the Merrimack River, and 2 of them are Coast Guard boats and 2 of them are fishing boats. Maybe a 3rd fishing boat, depends on the day, but I'm pretty sure there's only 2 here right now. So that's a little bit about me. 35 years old, wife, 2 kids, and love talking, love teaching people about the Coast Guard, love teaching people, honestly, anything really. I'm a talker. So without further ado, I'll kind of go into what I'm here about. And I was asked, what would I talk about? What was it? And I said, I don't know. I'll just talk about whatever comes to mind. It's not hard. If you want an example, this is what I'm talking about. And so the rest of it is just coming from the heart, and it's just coming from what I know. And it just kind of helps keep me on track. And I'll try not to talk too fast. I was told to keep this at 2 hours. No, I'm just kidding. It'll be about 30, 40 minutes. Okay, so brief history of the Coast Guard. After the Revolutionary War, we recognized that the U.S. was relatively unprotected, needed some enforcement options. The Navy had been disbanded. And so the Revenue Cutter Service was created by Alexander Hamilton. He founded it. We consider him the founder of the Coast Guard. That's what started our roots. So in 1790, the Revenue Cutter Service, which was actually the Revenue Marine Service, which I just found that out recently, was created. And I knew about the Revenue Cutter Service, and what we always boast about in Newburyport is the home of the Coast Guard, the creation. And so what is considered the very first revenue cutter that was built for the Revenue Cutter Service was the Massachusetts, which her keel was laid right here in Newburyport. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm the expert of the Massachusetts. I'm sure that the Custom House can probably help fill in on that a little bit more than I can. So I'm going to leave it at that so I don't say anything wrong. But, the Revenue Cutter Service kind of helped enforce tariffs and bring in some profit and help with shipping trades and things like that. And we were the only seagoing service for quite a long time. I think the Navy wasn't reestablished for about another 10 years. So we were the first line of defense. We were the ones who were guarding the coast, as cheesy as that sounds. After that, around 1786, the Massachusetts Humane Society started recognizing that people still needed help. You know, people's lives were in danger, and there wasn't really a great way to set that up. And so a lot of these buildings were set up to store boats for volunteers to go out and provide rescues and provide assistance. And there's a ton of great maritime history of lifesavers on the New England coast. And again, I'm not a historian, so I don't want to go too deep in case I accidentally misstate a fact, but it's full of it. It's full of it. So that went on for quite a while. So I said 1786, 1871. So 90 years of that going by of towns and good people doing the right thing, saving lives. And a gentleman by the name of Sumner Kimball came along and said, hey, we need to do better. We can do better. He proposed some ideas, helped create some, find the funding for it, and basically created the life-saving service. He helped standardize it. It was an amazing thing. It basically hired people to save lives. And my knowledge of the life-saving service was on the Outer Banks because I was there for almost 8.5 years. And there were several stations. The life-saving service history is really, really rich on the Outer Banks because of the shape of North Carolina. It's stuck out into the Atlantic. So when boats are coming up and down the coast, that was the closest point to land, which caused a lot of wrecks due to the diamond shoals and a lot of other stuff. And so there were a ton of life-saving stations there, and it was amazing. Basically, you would have a crew. You'd have a keeper who was in charge of that crew, and you'd have surfmen. And what they would do is, if there was a boat in distress, a sailboat or a schooner or what have you, if they were in distress and they recognized it, they would head out and they would be the ones that would save those lives. They had a couple of different methods. They could row out on boats, which was just it's amazing. They would row through these breaking seas that I drive a boat through. Granted, I drive through a little bit bigger, but they would row through these things. And there's histories and logs of these groups and these teams rowing through fire and saving lives. It's amazing. And that's where that term surfman came from. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But these guys were just amazing. I can't even, I'm so humble. I'm trying to sound so, they're just amazing. They really were. If you ever make it down to the Outer Banks, there's actually a lifeboat house that's still there. That's the original. And the steps up to where they slept are the original steps, and they're worn out from their feet walking up and down in the sand. And it's just amazing to read about the rescue that they did with the Merlot and rowing through fire, and the steps are still there. It's just awesome. So Lighthouse Service came up and running, and eventually I don't know who decided, hey, let's bring all this together. But in 1915, the Coast Guard was officially named the United States Coast Guard. And then in 2003, we worked for the Department of Transportation for a long time. In 2003, we were merged with the Department of Homeland Security, which is where we still remain. So a question that we get asked a lot is the Coast Guard military? What's the difference? Why aren't we in the Department of Defense? We get a lot of flack from the other branches. We are part of the armed forces. We raise our hand. We say the exact same oath to defend the country. The reason we're not under the Department of Defense just goes back to our roots, the Revenue Cutter Service. So the United States Coast Guard can enforce federal laws. The Department of Defense is not allowed to enforce any federal law at all. That's not what they do, but we do. And so if you've ever been on the water, you see us out there asking about life jackets. If you've been a fisherman, you've seen us asking if you've got enough catch on board, if you have too much catch, are you doing the right things? Do you have the right permits? We're enforcing federal law. Looks like I'm freezing. There we go. And so that is one of the biggest reasons, if not maybe the only reason, why we are not in the Department of Defense. However, under a wartime emergency, we can actually fall in under the Navy, which is why our ranks and rates are very similar. We take a lot after them. And it's not uncommon, actually, for us to deploy on Navy ships. And when we do, they will actually fly our Coast Guard ensign, which is kind of the symbol of us enforcing federal law And that's how the Navy may be allowed to stop somebody and enforce that law. It's because we are on the boat actually with them. So I just think that's pretty awesome. So I'm gonna take a break here for a second. Okay, so we mentioned earlier surf stations. So late 90s, Coast Guard realized that what we're doing with these motor lifeboats and these surf boats and going out in the surf could be better, could be standardized. We took after Summer Kimnall and we established a surf program. And so basically what happened is select units throughout the United States were designated as surf stations, which means they will be trained in and be authorized to take these surf boats out into the surf. And for us, we define surf as like a breaking sea, which really for us for surf training, we kind of have this odd boundary. It's an 8-foot breaking wave. So if you can picture a wave that a surfer is going to paddle out on and surf in, that's what we're driving boats through. That's the type of wave that we're talking about. The motor lifeboat that we currently use is the 47-foot motor lifeboat, and it's actually rated up to 20-foot breaking seas. So if you ever see us out on that boat, we're 15 feet above the water where we sit. And that boat is, sorry, distracted for a second. We're 15 feet and we can take another 5-foot break over top of that. So there's currently 19 surf stations in the entire United States. We used to have 5 on the East Coast. Due to several shoaling issues and a lot of other issues, Station Chatham was actually downgraded. They are no longer a surf station. That was, a historical station, a lot of rescues behind it, but due to shifting shoals and channels that you can get in and out of without having to go through those conditions, it wasn't needed anymore, unfortunately. It was sad to see that go, but things do change. But also due to the unique environment, they had a completely different boat than everywhere else in the United States. So that was an added challenge for them. But we have 4 on the East Coast. We have Merrimack River. We're the only one in New England. Then you have Barnegat Light, which is in New Jersey. And then you have 2 on the Outer Banks, Hatteras Inlet and Oregon Inlet, with Hatteras Inlet being the most southern and Oregon Inlet being the northern. The other 15 are all on the West Coast, and they range anywhere from the most northern port of Washington, and they go all the way down a little bit past San Francisco. So basically almost every single port to get off of the ocean and into safe water on the West Coast is a surf station. And it's a really big deal out there. There's a lot of fisheries out there. It's bringing in a lot of money. It's putting a lot of food on the table for, those fishermen. So it's really neat. We're a really small part of the Coast Guard. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I think it's about 120 of us in the Coast Guard right now, actively acting as surfmen, and maybe about 150. I really would have to look that up to be the official, but we're one of the smallest, if not the smallest, chunks of specialized training in the U.S. Coast Guard. So it's pretty amazing. For me, it took me 10 years to actually get this certification. It can be gotten as quick as 6. I wasn't sure if it was for me, went through my own personal struggles, so I kind of sat on it for a little bit and before I got back into it. But it's an intense training process. We take that boat out, it's capable of rewriting, coming right back up, and it just keeps on driving. So, Joan, is there any questions about anything that we've talked about so far that I should pause and address?
I'm not really quite sure about one question here that is there a discrete number of residents from each state to join the Coast Guard? I'm not sure if St. Jane, Susan, you want to turn on your mic and ask that or clarify what that question is?
Well, if she can, I think
That's all right.
Yeah, so the Coast Guard's never really been in the habit of advertising. We're a pretty small branch. We're the smallest branch. We hover around 55,000 people, give or take. There's always been a joke that we're, smaller than the New York Police Department, but it's an ebb and flow of how many people we let in the Coast Guard. So when I wanted to join 16 years ago, it was only a 2-month wait. I've heard as long as a year wait for people to get in. We do have some stricter requirements. You have to have higher ASVAB scores than most of the other branches. We tend to be a little more picky about who joins because we want people to be able to self-lead and grow and develop. And we're not really focused on getting numbers in the Coast Guard. We just want a quality member that really wants to get in here and do this job. I don't know if that
I
answers
thought
your
there
question.
were only 2 from every state.
No, that's not something that I've heard of. No, ma'am.
Thank you.
I will say I'm not a recruiter, but I've not heard of anything like that. It just depends on the needs of the Coast Guard, honestly, at that moment.
Thank you.
Joe,
Thank you for clearing it up.
Joe, I do have one question at this point in time, and that is, what inland states have Coast Guards? Because
That's a really great question. I don't know if I can completely accurately answer it, but I can. We actually do have units inland. We have a very few amount of units that actually don't touch water at all. So we have units all the way up and down the Mississippi River and other mainland or other main rivers. So basically anywhere where there's transportation. So access to open ocean. So major ports and rivers that go far enough up in for goods and services, the Coast Guard can be there. We just opened 4 brand new stations somewhere along the Mississippi, I think. I could be wrong. They're really fresh. I mean, they just commissioned these units within a few weeks. We have a station at Lake Tahoe. And the reason for that is Lake Tahoe, it is a landlocked body of water, but it's got 2 states that surround that water. So kind of opens us up for federal jurisdiction. The units that do not see water at all, we do have some more servicing units. Like Topeka, Kansas is one of our offices that kind of manages our pay. We have this amazing new rate that's our IS rate, information specialists. They're really good at kind of like, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it because it's also a new rate too. They kind of help manage, like as boats come in and out, they're kind of keeping an eye on them for like homeland security type purposes. And a lot of what they do is actually kind of like a need to know clearance that I don't even know. But most of the units, they're on the coast, but we do have a few that are inland. But basically, the great part about the Coast Guard is if you wanted to join, you don't really need to go overseas. We have units in Guam, we have units in Hawaii, Puerto Rico. We do actually have some units that are over in Bahrain. We've got a couple of cutters and a couple of landside stations, but for the most part, nobody's being forced to go overseas unless they want to. And by overseas, I mean like the Middle East. You kind of get to stay in the US, which is pretty nice if that's what you want. So moving on, let's talk about some of the boats that we've got at our unit. There's too many boats in the Coast Guard to talk about all of them, but we have boats ranging from 16 feet long up to 420 feet long within the Coast Guard. We've got a couple of icebreakers. We've got boats that we call them buoy tenders. They're boats that go out and service buoys, aids to navigation. But at our unit, we have 2 47-foot motor lifeboats. So those are the boats that I was originally mentioning that are capable of actually going out into those breaking seas. In the event of a capsize or a rollover, they will actually automatically rewrite completely on their own. Less than 15 seconds. It's quick. And they'll just keep on chugging. They're designed and built that they can run upside down, basically. They're an amazing boat. So we have 2 of those. We always have to have 2. We always work in tandem, in pairs. So anytime we go out and do training, that's why you always see 2. And I've got a couple of pictures that I'll show in a little bit of the 2 boats running together, which is really cool. And then we have a 29-foot response boat. So our 29-foot response boat is rated for 46 knots, so almost 50 miles an hour. It's a smaller draft, so it can get into shallower water. It's got a nice foam sponson around it, which is really great for coming alongside our boats. It can tow, it can conduct law enforcement, and it can conduct search and rescue. We like it because it is a smaller, more agile boat. It's a little faster, so it's really great in the summer for like kind of working our way through the crowd if there's an emergency on the river. Doesn't throw a really big wake, so we can kind of keep up our speed a little bit and get out there and effect that rescue. Because how terrible would it be if we're trying to head out to a rescue and then our wake from our boat were to capsize another boat? So that's something that our operators always have to keep in mind. The 47 is rated for 20 knots, or I'm sorry, 25 knots. So about 27 miles per hour. But like I said, it's really built to pull and go through those conditions. It's a 20-ton boat that can pull up to 200 tons. It's amazing. It's an awesome boat. Two giant diesel engines, turbos, aftercoolers, blowers on top of both. Like it's an amazing boat. And if you guys ever get to come to our open house, I highly recommend it, because we put them on display and let you guys see them. Most units have a larger boat and then a smaller boat. So the 47 is the workhorse for the surf stations. There's a 45-foot response boat. It's a jet drive boat that's actually the workhorse for pretty much the entire Coast Guard. Any other photos you usually see, it's the 45 or the 29. There's a lot of other boat types in there, but those are our two main platforms. Let's go over so Coast Guard missions. What do we do in the Coast Guard? We have a plethora of missions. I've already kind of mentioned them. Law enforcement, which can include recreational boating safety, so making sure you've got your carriage requirements. I'll get to that. I see that question, percentage of saving versus law enforcement tasks. I'll get to that. And Joan, please remind me, I want to answer that. So we've got a recreational boating law enforcement. It's not like a police officer where you have to be doing something wrong. The way that the law is written, and we can stop you at any point. And we really just want to make sure you have your safety gear, life jackets, whistles, throwable devices, fire extinguishers, really low level. It's all about boater education. Then we've got our living marine resource side of the law enforcement. So we want to make sure our fishing boats are not overfishing. They've got their permits. They've got their safety gear. They're not fishing in areas they're not supposed to. Making sure they've got the right equipment on their fishing gear in the event that, they're always operating around marine life. So if we're up here in the north, we've got some measures that they have to take in case of whale entanglement. If you work further south, you've got these awesome things called turtle excluder devices. It's basically this grate, and if a sea turtle gets sucked into the net, it pops the sea turtle out. It's really cool. So we're also making sure our marine life are safe. Marine mammal protection, endangered species protection, sharks, rays, endangered fish, all of that. We're out there protecting that. And that's what the public sees the most. A few lesser known missions. The aids to navigation is massive. Our ATON guys are amazing. They're out after storms, they're out in storms, changing out buoys, changing out lights. If you've been on the Merrimack anytime recently, you know that we've had our number 2 buoy get put off station a couple of times, and that's a feat to get that massive buoy back where it belongs. And it takes a little bit of time, but they do a great job at it. We also conduct marine inspections of boats. So if you're going out on a cruise ship or you're going out on a charter head boat, they're getting inspected by the Coast Guard annually or more, depending on what it is that they're doing. We make sure their permits are correct. We make sure their licenses are correct. We have this awesome new mission that came out after a little after 9/11. It's Ports and Waterways, Coastal Security. And if you ever go down to Boston or anywhere where there's a major port, even up near Portsmouth Harbor, if you ever see a boat getting escorted, and by escorted, I mean there's 2 Coast Guard boats sitting right on either side of that thing. There's a guy on the bow with a big old machine gun. It is their job to protect that boat at all costs. And it's an amazing thing. We're doing that with critical infrastructure. If maybe there's a power plant that has open access to the water, not the Seabrook power plant, that one doesn't really, but there are some massive infrastructures in the water that the Coast Guard's charged with protecting and constantly surveying. So, surveilling. So, let's talk about a little bit about the, what does the Coast Guard offer? So I mentioned that there's enlisted versus officer. What's really amazing about the Coast Guard is we actually have enlisted members that can be in charge of units solely on their own. Pretty much just about in every other branch, in order to be in charge of a unit, you're an officer. You're the commanding officer of that unit, that base. And we don't do that in the Coast Guard. Our station is actually ran by a master chief. He's an E9, so he's an enlisted person. If you're in the military, if you're familiar with this, he actually has Article 15 authority, which grants him the ability to conduct non-judicial punishment, which is it's an amazing thing. I may not be explaining it well enough, but it's really awesome. So our entire unit's enlisted, no officers. We take boats out. It could be a 22-year-old person that's put in charge of a boat, and we commonly make the joke that like you can't do that in the Navy. The people that are out there driving the boats, if there's a boat officer in charge of that, it's an officer. And I, at 22 years old, was taking a Coast Guard boat all by myself, $2 million boat, just headed out on the ocean all by my lonesome. It took a long time to build up that trust, but it's there. So you have two options. If you want to go enlisted, you're going to go to boot camp. It's in Cape May. It's 8 weeks long. They break you down and they build you back up as a team. It's all about teamwork, but the ability to think on your own at the same time too. We don't want robots in the Coast Guard. We want you to be able to recognize what's going on around you and operate independently if need be. After that, depending on your recruiter, you have a couple options. If your recruiter sets it up, you could go from boot camp straight to your school and become rated. We usually advise people not to do that. Join the Coast Guard, be a non-rate, be, that young kid. It is the low end of the totem pole, but you're going to get to experience everything without really any, contracts, not actual contracts, but no obligations. You can kind of see the Coast Guard. And if you don't like it, then you just don't advance and you can be on your way and complete your tour, your enlistment. I saw a comment that asked, what is it normally? It's usually 3 to 4 years. I think we've been looking at doing a 2-year program. I'm not sure if that's official yet, but your standard enlistment is usually 4 years. Once you're rated, then you can move up. So I went rated. I'm bosun-mate, and so I continue to work up in my bosun-mate field. If, let's say, I didn't like it anymore, I wanted to go cook cheeseburgers, I could do that, but I would lose a little bit of pay because I'd have to go back down and pay grade because there's no way they're going to let me be an E6 cook with 0 experience. But there's a ton of options if you wanted to get into the officer world for enlisted members. So if they change their mind, or if maybe they couldn't get into the academy because of grades or something along those lines, like it's not a dead end. There's the officer candidate program, which is really great. There's a warrant program. There's a lot of programs that enlisted members can actually transition into the officer world and continue on, or you could stay enlisted, which is probably what I'm going to do. I don't know, Joan, I hope that explains it enough. I saw a question that asked about enlisted and collaboration. I can't get it to come up.
Well, there was one question. What is the percentage of saving versus law enforcement tasks?
That's really great. So this summer we engaged, and I'm going to use the word engaged, with probably 375 boats. So 325 actual recorded law enforcement interactions. We do stop people and just kind of talk sometimes. That's why I said there's probably about 50 people over the summer that we just stop and say, oh, you just recently got boarded. Not going to inspect you again. You got boarded last week. Have a nice day. We don't actually count those, but there's probably about an additional 50 boats. So about 375 boats were probably stopped by us this year with the intent of conducting some sort of law enforcement activity. And I think we ended up the year with about 45 search and rescue cases. So that greatly depends on unit to unit. This is not considered to be a very highly active law enforcement area for us on the Merrimack because of just what we have. But if you were to go to somewhere like Key West or Miami or New Orleans, they could be conducting 4,000 law enforcement interactions a year. It depends on that area and what they're asking of that unit. And it depends on the unit too. Those units that are getting 4,000 boardings a year have more people. You know, they might have 60 people at that unit. We only have 31, so we just don't have the capacity to stop that many boats. Enlisted people sounds like it's very collaborative working process. I think just the way that the way that we're trained and taught in the Coast Guard, it's unlike anything else. And I don't really notice any sort of difference, the fact that we don't have officers. The thing with the Coast Guard and not having officers is there is one specific rate that's groomed and trained to be the leadership rate and to take over a unit. It's the bosun mates. So as soon as you make bosun mate, you're a third class petty officer, you've got 2.5 years in the Coast Guard, we're immediately grooming you and training you on how to interact with people, how to manage your workforce, how to, and eventually manage a budget, manage the galley at the station. So we're constantly being groomed and trained. So maybe that might explain a little bit on why we're able to still do it so well without the officer assistance. So we do have still at least one focal point that's getting there. Did I get seasick when I first went out in the rough seas? Don't tell my crew this, but yes, the very first time I went out on my boat was it was a 210-foot boat, and I think we went south. We were in Key West. I got picked up, and I did get sick my first day. I have not gotten seasick since then. I'm a boat operator, and we tend to not get seasick. And as long as I've been on it, you just kind of get used to it. I do get land sick though. The most amazing natural experience you've had on the water. I'll get to that in a second. I do get land sick. So one of my longest cases, I was out for 13 hours. And as soon as I hit land, I immediately got sick. Like, I didn't throw up, but I immediately had a headache. I started sweating and had that nauseous, like, car sick feeling. So I make jokes because I've got a really young crew, and I was like, oh, I don't get seasick, I get land sick. So, you know, I think I've only got a little bit more to talk about, and then I'd really love to hear from everybody else. How am I at on time, Joan? I don't know when I started.
I think you're doing good on time. There were a couple questions that you said you would get back to, and that's the most amazing natural experience you've seen on the water. And
Okay.
if you've seen any effects of climate change over the past few years.
Okay. Well, let me finish up my last bullet point, because we did mention it in the intro, and I don't want to miss it. And then I'll come back to questions, and I've got some photos to show you guys. So daily life at Station Merrimack River. So we have 2 duty crews. We're very similarly staffed like a fire department, except for usually fire departments are a 1 on 2 off. We're a 2 on 2 off. So we call it port and starboard, nautical, 2 days on, 2 days off with a sliding weekend. So what that means is we just, instead of doing a Friday, Saturday, we do Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So quick example, the crew that I was just at work this morning, I got off of work at 9 o'clock this morning. They came on this morning at 7, and they will not go home until Monday morning. And then I will go to work Monday morning, and I will not come home until Wednesday morning. So it's a 48-hour and a 72-hour shift. Every unit kind of sets up how they want to do their work every single day. But for us, depending on what our schedule is, we could be getting underway doing training. So if our schedule says conduct training that day, the senior crew will get together and we'll identify what we need to work on. Oh, hey, so-and-so has not towed before, so let's go out and practice towing each other around. So-and-so, member B could work on swimming in the water with survival gear on. So, maybe we'll do that. Or member C is working on their law enforcement certification. So, hey, let's go jump on the mats and practice punches and stuns and kicks and different things like that. So our day starts around 8:15 in the morning. And it could end as late as 10 o'clock at night. It usually ends around 4, but we're always there. We're on call for that entire 48 hours. We sleep at the station. We don't stay up 24 hours a day. but we are there all the time. So if somebody calls us, they're going to wake us up and we're ready to rock. The other main part of the thing that we might do for the day is maintenance. So we try to share our training and maintenance and split it, because all that work on the boats can put some wear and tear in the environment that we work in. So we're constantly conducting preventative maintenance. I've actually got a few photos of us doing some repairs. You know, maybe we've damaged our boat. Maybe we've had a failure of our engine, and so we're replacing major parts. Or maybe we're just doing routine maintenance, painting holes, fixing our chairs, stuff like that. So not super in depth on the daily routine, but that's what it looks like. You know, it's an 8-hour day, but it could be a 16-hour day. It depends on the need. Summertime, we're definitely a lot busier. You know, we're definitely having 12 to 16-hour days a lot more often. And in the wintertime, it's a lot nicer since there's not really anybody on the water. We get a little bit of a break. So that's kind of our daily routine. So I'd love to answer the questions that we have now and then show some photos. And if there's any other questions, then we'll continue. If I can find my mouse. There we go. Got it. All right, I'm just gonna scroll back, Joan. All right. Coast Guard accepts applicants from entire nation and its territories with no limitations by geographic region. Yeah, that's exactly right. We actually have 4 people that are from Puerto Rico. We've got somebody who originally, and Joe knows who I'm talking about, who was originally from France. He was a French citizen, and he's now a U.S. citizen. There are some restrictions on how long you can stay in and what certain jobs you could do depending on your history, but we generally want to bring in as many people and be as diverse as we possibly can. Thank you, Admiral. Appreciate it. Obligation, I think we answered that. Yep, don't tell my crew I get seasick. Amazing natural experience. Excuse me. You know, it might be a tie, honestly. So one really cool thing I've seen is there's this really cool phenomenon called bioluminescence in the water when it gets disturbed. It turns into like this glowing color. When I was on my 210-foot cutter one night, I went up to the bow of the boat, you know, to the front of the boat, and I looked down and there were dolphins swimming in it, but I didn't know there were dolphins at the time. And all I saw was trails of this bioluminescence, and then it would disappear and then it would show back up. And it was the dorsal fin of the dolphins disturbing the water. It was just gorgeous. We were in like off of Key West, like 50 miles or something like that. So it was beautiful out. And then I was on the Outer Banks, you know, for 8.5 years, and it's beautiful water. It's not as clear as Key West, you know, or the Keys, but it's about as clear as you're going to get on the East Coast. And the amount of sea turtles and sharks that I saw out there is just amazing. The Gulf Stream is so close that even in the wintertime, it'd be 40 degrees at the station, and we'd head out to the Gulf Stream, and immediately you'd be surrounded by sea life. The air would be warmer, the water would be 70 degrees. It's just beautiful. We even had a manatee come up one time with a hurricane. He kind of got a little lost. Climate change, I can't say that I have, honestly. Kind of been around too many different units to really been anywhere long enough to recognize the change. Now, shifting shoals and islands eroding, I wouldn't, you know, chalk that up to climate change. You know, if you're going to build a house on a beach, sometimes the beach is going to disappear. So, how far away do we sail from port? So distance-wise, we have a cutter called the Eagle, which is kind of like it's a training platform for our officers, but it's almost like a recruitment tool or an advertisement because it's really awesome. It's the only sailboat that we still have that we actually acquired during World War II. But I've heard stories of them going to Africa and Europe. As far as time away, it depends on the boat. If you're on a smaller boat, our 87s might go out for 3 to 5 days at a time. They've got some limitations with how much water they can store, so they've got to come back in and take on water for showers and drinking and cooking. Same thing with big cutters. So my 210-foot cutter, I think the longest that I didn't see land for was 10 days, which really pales in comparison to the Navy, but we're a much smaller service. But our patrols were typically anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks out. So, a month and a half to 2.5 months. The longest patrol I had was 2 months. I think the longest patrol in the Coast Guard has been 6 months. I'm not a seagoing person, so I can't accurately answer that, but I feel like I've heard stories of a few cutters that have gone out on some rarer cruises for about 6 months away from home port. But they're still pulling into port every so often. They still have to take on food and fuel and water occasionally, and repairs or mail, things like that. So, all right, what else? What is the proper way to address me? You know what? My crew is actually, they call me BM1. So bosun's mate, first class, make it really easy. BM1 Habel. That's typically how I introduce myself. There's probably about 3 or 4 different ways that you could say myself, but officially it's bosun's mate, first class, Joe Habel. Or if you just want to keep it super simple, BM1 Habel. If I meet you guys out in the public on the boat, I'm just going to say, hey, I'm BM1 Joe Habel. That's typically a casual way of how I would introduce myself. So, and last question, most favorite and least favorite part of the Coast Guard. I joined the Coast Guard to help people. I genuinely want to help people. And I want to be that person when they start to lose hope that they know I'm coming. And I don't mean just me, but the Coast Guard. I wanted to be a part of that. Like when people are out there and they know the Coast Guard's coming, I wanted to be a part of that group. And I love seeing people hit land, or just when they're in the worst possible situation, see us and they smile. And it is the most humbling thing, bringing back a husband or a wife or a son and seeing that family hug them. That feeling is not beaten by anything else by far. And if I could stay driving boats for the Coast Guard for the rest of my career, I would, but I can't. I need to move on and let other people do it. My least favorite part, my particular career being a surfman has a few less desirable locations, honestly. The nastiest parts of the United States are a little more secluded, so that can be a challenge, and it has to be outweighed by, the job that we do. I don't even know if I would say that's really the least favorite, or I mean, that's not even really that bad. But if I had to say the least favorite, the worst of the worst, that's it. Is some of the units that I could be stationed at are a little isolated. If you've ever looked up Forks, Washington, or something, even the Outer Banks was pretty isolated. So, Coast Guard open house. So we try to do it with the Yankee homecoming every year. So we didn't do it the year before because of COVID. This past year was August 10th. It was early August. Follow our Facebook page, please. We will make sure that we put it on there when the open house is, but it is in conjunction with the Yankee homecoming. So, okay. Well, I'm going to attempt to do some screen sharing and show you guys some photos, and I'll just give a quick description, and then I'll come back to any other questions that might remain from either the photos or anything else like that. So these will be a lot quicker. All right. So Joan, can you just confirm that
You've started to share your screen, but it's black. There we go. You got it.
Perfect. So, all right. So these are just a couple of photos we've taken. I'll just give a quick description. So part of our training process is, if we pick somebody up that needs to be medevaced and sent to, further medical care, it's a Coast Guard helicopter that's going to come pick you up. This is actually a really great photo of a Coast Guard rescue swimmer. So that's his rate. That's his job. That's all he does is, pull people out of the water, pull people off boats. He's deployed from the helicopter. There's a movie about it called The Guardian. That's what this rate is focused on. So specifically in Merrimack River, we actually have this amazing ability to pull our 47-footer out of the water. So this 40,000 pound boat, we pick it right up out of the water and allows us to bring it in the house and do any sort of maintenance that we want to. So that's a little unique to Merrimack. Not every unit has the ability to do this. Some great photos of the preventative maintenance. So what we've got is this petty officer is actually working on this this black railing. It was damaged, and so he's actually unbolting it, and he's going to conduct some repairs. And you can see we were actually doing a little bit of hull paint too. So nice fresh black paint. This is a picture from a rescue that we did 2 years ago or so. We had found two people who had fallen out of their kayak and were having troubles getting back on. And we'd actually just by chance seen them, and they gave us a wave, and we pulled them on the boat and gave them a ride back. Here's another great photo of us actually pulling this boat out of the water. That's what those two long finger piers are at the station. That's exactly what that's for. This is a photo of a Coast Guard rescue helicopter deploying a dewatering pump. So they actually have the ability of dropping a gasoline-powered dewatering pump into the water. And if you look closely, you can actually see a line that way. So they would hand you the line, they'd swing the line over to you, and then they'd hover a little bit further away and drop this pump and allow you to bring it on board and provide assistance until a boat gets on scene. So one of the challenges of the Merrimack is because it does get a good amount of fresh waters, it builds up some ice. So us and the Lisa Ann, we found ourselves in a unique circumstance last year, and we had this massive ice flow that we had to kind of break through, and the Lisa Ann was really awesome, and they gave us a hand and they pushed ahead of us for us. So they've got a steel hull and we've got an aluminum hull. We can break through some light surface ice, but it gets pretty thick. This is a photo of us doing some training, doing the exact same thing that the helicopter does. You know, it's not always safe for us to pull exactly alongside a boat, you know, especially if it's rocky and a little choppy. And we can do the same thing and put a pump in the water, and then, you know, the distressed vessel could pull it on board. This is a different point of view. We had a fishing boat last fall, I believe, that it had actually slipped her mooring. And so we ran out and gave her a hand. We put her in a quick tow and pulled her back. This fishing boat was pretty light compared to what we're capable of. So, you know, it's pretty amazing what this boat can do. And if you've been following our Facebook page, I could not promote our galley staff. We actually have 2 members at the station that constantly cook for the crew. So we get 3 meals a day. We don't have to make them. And this was a swordfish jambalaya, and man, he's a phenomenal cook. And we try to highlight, you know, every member that we can as much as we can. This was interesting. We were out conducting a patrol, and if you look closely, this boat that's in front of the bow of the 29 is actually sitting pretty low. She had taken on some water. A good Samaritan had gotten on scene and actually put her in tow, and we followed them all the way back to the dock just to make sure they didn't need any other assistance. That's the entrance to the Hampton Harbor. So when we're not conducting law enforcement and we're not conducting search and rescue, we train like it's nobody's business. Train, train, train. You know, that's how we're able to, you know, stay proficient and do what we do. This is awesome. Last summer we had this is a very rare look into it. You know, we had somebody who was injured on the jetty, and it wasn't safe for the medical staff to actually walk out on the jetty. And what we actually ended up having to do was put this guy in the water and pull him to us and put him on the boat and then bring him ashore, which ended up being the safest way to do it. You can see he's got a life ring around him so that we don't have to worry about, you know, whether or not he can swim or, you know, stay above the surface. If anybody on here is any of the photographers that take these photos for us, I just want to say thank you. We've got a lot of great photographers that come out and watch us do training. So this is, you know, an awesome shot of that helicopter sitting over top of us as we conduct training. On top of that, you know, twice a year we're going to the range, and we're working on our firearms proficiency, our firearm skills. So we have a multitude of weapons that we carry. Our main weapon is the SIG 229, so it's a 40 cal pistol, but we also carry, excuse me, M4 rifles and 870 Remington shotguns. And this is where it's really at. You know, we when we go out and conduct that training and we take those breaks over the bow and they just splash up, and the boat really just makes it feel like you can go through just about anything. So like I said earlier, you know, we're always out in tandem. So I really love these photos when they take them of us up together. It just it shows that we're one big team no matter what. So just to give you some perspective, we are missing a few members of our crew in this photo, but that is basically our crew. It's not a big crew. We're small, but we're potent, and we get a lot done. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, our mechanics are phenomenal. Pictured was we had, I don't specifically remember what happened. I think that we needed a new blower on top of these diesel engines. So these diesel engines, they have blowers and they have turbos on them. So one blower, one turbo for each engine. And they had to replace it. So we've got right here is actually one of our female machinery technicians. So we got a phenomenal female mechanic that works at the unit and was teaching the person on the right actually how to do it. Go ladies, right? And another great shot, you know, we had just come back from training. I think that's all I've got for my photos, Joan. So I'm gonna open it up if anybody has any additional questions. Looks like there was one last question. Challenges of the Merrimack River and my experiences. The Merrimack River, great question. It can be a challenge. You know, there's a good amount of tidal flow that comes in and out as the tide comes up and comes down. You know, you could see anywhere from 2 to 3 knots of current. And I hope I don't offend anybody who loves the Merrimack River, but in comparison to what we operate in the Coast Guard, that's really not a lot for what we could see. So a lot of our West Coast stations are actually on rivers, and they will increase up to 6 or 7 knots depending on the rainfall. So a little less common, but I would say we're relatively adjusted to it. But it doesn't go without its challenges, and it absolutely deserves the respect that it should be given. You know, when that tide changes and the ebb starts cranking and it starts pushing against that incoming sea state, and then you've got an outgoing tide and it just stacks up the Merrimack River. You know, the river could be nice and calm, and the next thing you know, it's 4 to 6 foot seas right there at the entrance. And then you get a mile offshore and it's 2 foot again. So the entrance to the Merrimack can be challenging. You know, it's a shifting area. It constantly changes. I thought I had a photo of what it looks like from the air. It deserves its respect for sure, but I've enjoyed it. I really have. It's been unique. I learned how to drive boats on the East Coast, so my experiences, like I said, adjusting to rocks. The Outer Banks is sandy, deep water in Oregon. So rocky shorelines, yes, but you know, 10 feet away from the shore, it's super deep. You know, 35, 45, 55 foot deep, real fast, 100 foot deep. So it's a little bit different. But I would say the biggest challenge that I had with the Merrimack River was the amount of boating traffic that just comes out of nowhere. That was a little bit of an adjustment for me. In North Carolina, it's kind of a steady boating traffic all summer long. And then Oregon, there's not a lot of boating traffic at all, but it is steady. So that is all I have. If there's no further questions, I don't know if we want to open up the mic just for a minute and see if anybody wants to ask a question or not.
Yeah, please, everyone, if you are comfortable, turn on your video or turn on your mic. I just, as people are doing that, I just want to emphasize, Joe, you know, I had the privilege to tour one of your surf boats, and it never really occurred to me the extremism that you guys and women are all in neoprene sweatsuits and you are tethered to the railing. So should you roll, you're rolling with the boat, and sometimes you may get loose of the boat.
Hold your breath. Yep. If we're wearing our gear correctly, we're not getting loose of the boat.
Yeah, But, you know, when I think of just sort of historically, you know, just to try to break that surf, you know, you can really understand the magnitude of risk and the reason for the life stations. And, you know, it's just, it really is impressive. So thank you.
Well, absolutely.
Round of applause for being one Habel.
I guess I ended up burning more time than I thought I would. I thought I'd be ripping through this and be done in 20 minutes.
No, you did, you covered everything, and you can even clap your hands if you want to do the reaction. If you're too shy to turn on your mic. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I think the appreciation for what you do and the risk that everyone takes and the services is a little bit more understood and a little bit more helpful so that we can lower the risk of the need for your responses.
Absolutely. You know, and while I can't answer phone calls all day long and answer anybody's questions, but if anybody seriously has questions about boating safety or, you know, boating the Merrimack or has friends or family that want to join the Coast Guard, tell them to call the station, ask for me, and I would love to talk to anybody about anything I can.
Well, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And we'll look forward to the next First Friday, whether it's virtual or in person, time will tell, but we'll keep you informed.